Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating? I am getting a little, uh, I am, something funky has gone on here. Let me close this out. I'm getting a little echo there. There was a window open that shouldn't have been open. That happens because we are live. This proves that we're live. As I was saying, who or what are you celebrating today? I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. I'd like to give a special shout out today to two very special men. The first is Walter Willison. Walter reached out to me a few weeks ago and asked me if I would be interested in interviewing Jennifer Bassey. Well, he didn't have to ask twice. I jumped at the chance because I used to watch her on All My Children. I was a huge fan. I got hooked in the 80s when Zach Grayson was murdered. We'll get to that a little later in the show. And I also want to give a special shout out to Glenn Charlo. Glenn, as a lot of you know who watched the show before, is a dear, dear friend of mine. And he was instrumental in helping us get all the technical issues together so we could have our very special guest today. A lot of you know her as Marian Colby, but she has an incredible career that goes way beyond All My Children. And we're going to talk about those today. And she's also has a very special show coming up at 54 Below. And we will talk about that in a few moments as well. You see, there's a lot to unpack today. And she is right here. We're bringing her on. Jennifer, welcome to the show. And I want to begin by asking you, who or what are you celebrating today?
Well, today I'm just celebrating to be awake and walking around. I tell you, it's a lot of work doing one of these shows. I got to tell you.
It is a lot of work, and a lot of people think we just turn a switch on and we just show up there. And I have to tell you, there is a rainbow going across your eyes. It is so beautiful. There's a little rainbow somehow circling around you.
Wow.
So, Marian, I want to go back. When I do these shows, I'm always interested in what makes an artist, how an artist gets from point A to point B. And I know that you were born in Chicago.
Yep.
I want to go back to when you were 5 years old.
Oh, God, you don't want to go there. That
yes?
was horrible.
Oh, well, there's a reason why I'm asking you this. Because I believe that the 5-year-old self and 5-year-old soul is the purest self. Because it's before life begins to tell us who we are, who we should be, who we should not be. And I know that you grew up in Chicago, but when, where, and how did that light bulb go off for you that you said, this is what I want to lay down my life to do?
You mean when I really thought about, I really want to maybe go into acting?
Yes.
Well, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was a high soprano, and I lost my voice, and my voice came back like this. And they said, you're never going to get your high soprano voice back again. And I thought it was like a curse. I thought, oh my God. I mean, I go to the Brownie, meetings, and they say, who's the boy in the Brownies? Because I sounded like a boy,
Did something happen to you? I mean, was it physical that happened to you, or
they just said you'll never be able to sing soprano again, but you're talking and you'll be able to. I never came back. So, and then when I got into high school, someone said, you should try out for the drama club. That's what they call it, the drama. They didn't call it drama. And I said, what's that? And they said, well, it's acting, it's, I didn't know about it. So I did a little play in the drama club, and I got applause. And I thought, oh, I like that applause. That's really nice to get applause. And then people said, you're good. You've got kind of a presence, But it's really Bobby Short's fault that I'm here. You really want to know. It's Bobby Short's fault because I was a singing Playboy bunny. I only sang one song. I sang a very dirty version of Bill Bailey, and everyone gave me $100 and said, sing it again. And I did. So I only sang one song, but I made a lot of money. anyway, Bobby Short, when he performed at the Playboy Club, because we had, George Burns, George Carlins and Jack Burns, an unknown comedy duo. This is the late 50s. And we had Mabel Mercer, we had all kinds of brilliant people. But whenever Bobby was there, because I thought Bobby was the most brilliant thing I'd ever seen, I'd tell everybody, shut up, shut up. I'd tell the whole audience, just shut up. Bobby Short is singing, just keep quiet, And so Bobby came up to me one night. He said, you shouldn't be a singing Playboy bunny. You should study acting. So I wrote a letter to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art because I happened to be reading a book by George Bernard Shaw. And I never got through the preface because I didn't have any idea what he was talking about when I was reading this book. But it said the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art is the best drama school in the world. So I wrote a letter and I said, hi, I'd like to come to your school. And they wrote back and said, well, we only take 3 Americans a year. But you can come over to London if you would like, and you can audition with 30 of our students who audition in London. The odds sounded to me a little bit better. So I was too drunk to pack the night before I flew to London. And my friend Bunny Claudia, I said, Claudia, will you pack for me? I'm too drunk to pack. She said, okay. So I said, now pack sweaters and slacks, because if I get into the school, I'm not flying back to Chicago. I'm staying over in England. So she said, okay. So she packed, she was drunker than I was, and she packed feather boas and evening gowns and negligees, one sweater and 1 pair of pants, slacks. That's all I had. I had feather boas and evening gowns. So I landed in London and I got the lowest entrance marks in the history of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. And it's an honor I still hold today. I got a call in 2004 and it went like this. This is Richard. I said, who? He said, Richard from RADA. I said, oh, hi, darling. How are you? He said, listen, the centennial for RADA is just coming up now in 2004. You still hold the record for the lowest entrance marks in the history of the school. So we want you, darling, to fly over. And when we celebrate the centennial, we want you to do that audition to show them how bad it was. So I did. Yeah, I flew over. And it was appalling. It was very funny, but it was horrific. And I remember when I went down to audition, they said, this is Sir Michael Redgrave and Dane Ebeth Evans. And I'd never heard of any of them. I said, oh, hi. I didn't know who the hell they were, and it was the worst audition they'd ever seen. And they said, well, she's got a little stage presence. Maybe we'll keep her and throw her out in her first term. And then I graduated top of my class 3 years later with Anthony Hopkins. So I did quite well eventually when I was there. But I remember being stunned. I'd never read Shakespeare. I'd never done anything. And we had a teacher named Miss Carter. And Nell Carter did a lot of George Bernard Shaw's plays. And she cast me as a fairy in Midsummer Night's Dream. And at that point, I have to say, I said, well, I didn't fly all this way to play a homosexual because I thought a fairy was a homosexual. I'm from Chicago. What did I know? And she said, no, it's a fairy. I said, well, I don't have a high voice. I can't play a fairy. And so she said, stay after class, would you? I said, all right. She said, you look very scared when you play the fairy. I said, I am. And everybody laughs at me. And they make fun of me, and I don't want to play the fairy. I'm not good, and I won't be good playing the fairy. She said, I want to share something with you. George Bernard Shaw once said to me, in order to learn to ice skate, you must first become ridiculous. And the ice of life is very slippery. Now, I will know that you're trying to play the fairy, and it doesn't matter if they laugh. I won't laugh because I'll know that you're trying to play the fairy. So I really tried to play the fairy, but then I had an appendix attack and I had my appendix out and I never had to play the fairy. And somebody said, I think you had your appendix out just so you didn't have to play the fairy.
Mind over matter. Always.
Right.
Now, do you consider her your first real mentor in the business? Or, along the way, there are so many people that you meet who are going to guide you and move you to the next step and so on. I
had a mentor. I met a man in London, and his name was Xavier Marchemont. Very extraordinarily good-looking man. beautifully dressed, had Napoleon Bonaparte's mistress's headboard on the wall of his, from her bedroom on the wall of his dining room. I mean, it was just, and he said, darling, I really do love you, but here's a list of everything you can't say in public. And I looked at the list. I said, but that's everything I say. He said, I know. You can't tell the Duke and Duchess that you had sex with Bobby Short's bongo player. I said, but I did. No, I mean, I know this is shocking, but that's what I would do. I would tell people that, and he'd say, no, 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 no.
You didn't have a censor in terms of what
No.
you felt was right or what was
No
wrong.
one told me. I was on my own from when I popped out of the womb. I had no idea about manners and being charming and bringing presents when you went to someone's house for dinner. And, I knew nothing. And that's what he taught me. He said, now, when the Duke and Duchess come for dinner, say, oh, what a lovely dress you're wearing, how beautiful you look, make people feel good about themselves. And he taught me about art and paintings. He took me to the museums. I mean, I knew nothing. I had an eye problem until I was 40 years old. I couldn't read. So my father worked on the A-bomb. My father was a mechanical genius, a civil engineer. And I remember him coming home and saying, we're going to do algebra now. And of course, I didn't know I had this eye problem where I only saw the center of the sentence. I couldn't see either end. So I didn't really learn how to read till I was 40. So I flunked everything. So I had no idea of art or anything because I stopped reading at a young age because I knew I was stupid. I knew I couldn't read,
Obviously, to go into a profession such as acting, you're dealing with scripts, and it's not, and for anyone who doesn't know, reading sides, reading scripts, reading stage technique and the beats and all of that. How were you able to get past that?
Okay, well, textbooks at school are very thin print, but plays are much bigger print. Mm-hmm. And I could read them over and over and over and over and figure them out, but I couldn't read. Like, you sent me home and said, read 40 pages for homework tomorrow. And I would read the 40 pages, but I was taking in nonsense. I wasn't taking in what they said. So I would flunk. So I thought I was the only stupid member of my family because I flunked everything.
Did you ever share any of this with with friends, family, anyone, or was this a secret that you kept for 40 years?
No, I never knew about it. I went to a doctor when I was 39 years old, and he said, I'm looking at a tragedy. And I laughed. I said, do you say that to all your patients? He said, no, just the tragic ones. And I said, well, why are you saying that to me? He said, you don't remember anything you read, do you? And I said, well, I just looked at the paper out in your waiting room, and I can't tell you what I looked at. I can't tell you what I read. He said, no, of course you can't, because you have a problem. When you were young, people didn't have this problem. He said, okay, I'm going to send you home for 3 months with exercises. And in 3 months, you're going to be reading, and you're going to remember everything you read. And almost 3 months to the day, my late husband said, you just quoted something out of the newspaper. You just quoted something. You remembered what you read, and I remember crying. I remember sitting there saying, you mean I'm not stupid? He said, no, you just have a muscle problem that needs to be solved, and you have to work at it. And if you do these at home, you'll be reading. So I've been reading. So I'm a voracious reader. I mean, I read 2 books a week at least. I mean,
it's amazing the little things that we take for granted. I mean, to hear a story such as this, I too, look at my shelves. I love to read.
Me too.
And constantly, Amazon Prime loves me because
me too. Kindle, I'm buying everything.
I'm buying books all the time. I love to read. I want to go back for a moment where you said that you really didn't have this censor as to the proper things to say or not to say. Coming from Chicago, and did you have a family that would ever correct you on these things, or was this just a way of life?
No, my family was excruciatingly dysfunctional. My father's first wife died in 1932. And when my second husband, Luther Davis, met my father, he said, you know, your father doesn't talk about anything after 1932. And I said, no, he stopped living when his wife died. You know, in 1932, they didn't have tranquilizers. They didn't have psychiatrists. They didn't have therapists. You dealt with your grief. So here's a man. They married in 1929. They sailed back from Europe. I don't know what that is, but that'll go away. I don't even know how to make that go away. I have my phone off, so I don't know why that's doing it. Let's see if I can. Anyway, okay, where were we? I'll just let it play out. I'm sorry.
At your father, and the fact that you said that he literally stopped.
So my father's first wife was told that if she had a second child, she probably wouldn't survive having a second child. She wanted 2 children. She had my half brother and my half sister. And then she lingered. Today, they could have saved her in 10 seconds, but she died. And he married the babysitter. He didn't want really to marry my mother, but he married the babysitter just to take care of his kids. He was so damaged by that point. His whole soul shut down. His whole life shut down. And he never really enjoyed the rest of his life. He was always angry and sad. Then my mother, you know, was Swedish, and they're all drinkers, so everybody's drinking. Oh, it was not a good group. It was you know, I was never home. I was always out playing volleyball or doing something I didn't have to read because I knew I would flunk it.
I want to ask you something. When I came to New York in 1979 to pursue my career, and years later, as I got a little older and wiser, I realized that not only was I running towards something, I was also running away from. I grew up in a dysfunctional family. My father, unfortunately, was an alcoholic, and I grew up in a very chaotic household. But I found that coming to New York, I was actually running away as much as I was running towards something. Do you feel that you were running away when you came when you went to London? And what was it beyond being asked to be a fairy that you did not want to do that kept you moving forward instead of retreating backwards?
In London?
In London.
Well, no, I wasn't running away. I mean, my life, I was like a ping pong ball in an 8-sided room. You know, if Bobby Short said I should study acting and I happened to be reading a book that mentions the Royal Academy, that's where I'm going to go. You know, I thought, oh, that's where. I mean, I didn't think, you know, I just did, you know. No, when I got over to England, I really, really studied. I mean, I really worked hard, and I loved it. And I even had a past life experience. I was cast in, oh God, The Crucible, and I read the play and I threw it across the room and I said, I hate this play. I hate this play. And I just had a nervous breakdown in England. That's another very funny story, which we won't go into. But anyway, I had a nervous breakdown. And I was locked up for a few days. And I got out and I came back to school. And they cast me in The Crucible. And I said, I just want to play a small part because, you know, I'm not feeling very well. And they cast me in the lead. And something happened. It was really extraordinary. When we did that performance, I hated the play so much. I hated it so much. And I remember thinking in the third act, I'll never have to do this again. I'm so glad I'll never have to do this again. And they brought me out and I was in chains. I think she was pregnant. I can't even remember now. It's like 65 years ago. So I came out and I don't remember anything that happened. And at the end of the play, I heard some horrible sobs, some sobbing sounds. I thought, who's crying? Oh my God, that's such a horrible sound. And I realized it was coming out of me. And everybody on the stage was crying. And all the teachers and the principal of the Royal Academy came up to me and they were sobbing. And they said, we've never seen anything like this. This is the most extraordinary performance we've ever seen. And I went home and slept for 4 days. So years later, I was touring with Mickey Rooney and we were going through Salem, Massachusetts. And they said, we're going into the house where they were, you know, where they were, lived, and we're going on the hill where they hanged all these people. And I said, no, no, no. And my hair on my arm started standing straight up, just like terror, terror. And it was a hot, sunny day. And I said, I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. And then I went into a little past life group. They were doing a weekend thing where they went into past lives. And suddenly I go back to Salem, Massachusetts, and I'm hiding behind this drape. The windows were very small, because it was so cold. And they said, we've got to find her. We've got to find her. And they finally find me, and they bring me up the hill, and they show me where my husband has been hanged. And I remember in this past life thing, starting screaming and screaming and screaming and screaming until nothing came out. My voice was gone, and they locked me in a room and they fed me. I never spoke again. And so whether we believe in it or not, I have to say that it was an extraordinary experience to go through this.
But what triggered this was you getting the script for The Crucible.
Yeah.
And becoming that person, literally becoming that person on stage. Have you had this experience with other roles that you have played?
No, just that one. And it was, whoa, it was huge, huge. I mean, people cried at the Royal Academy. People saw me in the hall. Days later, they would break out in sobs. They said, we've never seen a performance like this. I don't remember the performance because I wasn't there. So yeah. Well, we're touching all kinds of strange stuff today.
No, these are how I roll. I love this. So these are your first two big roles, or your first two roles in London. Did you decide to stay in London after?
Well, John, oh gosh, his name will come to me. It was Tony Hopkins, Susan Fleetwood. We had a fantastic group of people. I played old ladies. They found out I could play old people. And I did so well at playing old people that agents who came to the Royal Academy, they said, we didn't know you let old people in. I mean, who's that old woman? I mean, they thought I was an old woman. I was 21. But I played so many old people. So the reason I left early is they cast me as Lady Bracknell. And that was, I found out, I wasn't supposed to find out that I was cast as Lady Bracknell if I stayed. And so I told them I ran out of money and I had to leave early. And they gave me an honors diploma. And I left early because I got tired of playing old people. I mean, I was the only one who could do it. And I was really good at it. So that's my whole career there. In fact, my first job here off Broadway was Arms and the Man. And I was playing, and the principal of the Royal Academy called the director and he said, this wonderful actress, she just came back from England. She's wonderful. She can play the mother. So I came in a little mini skirt. I was 22 years old. And he said, how old are you? I said, I'm 22 or 3 or whatever. And he said, you can't play the mother. You've got to play Luca. I said, what's Luca? He said, she's younger, whatever. But I remember putting age lines on my face when I went in dress rehearsal. And one of the actresses says, why are you putting age lines on your face? I said, because I'm doing my makeup. They said, no, but you're not playing an old person. I said, oh, well, that's the only makeup I know. They only knew how to do old makeup. I never played a young person.
So trying to get the timeline correct, when you left London, you came right to New York.
1963, came here in 1963.
Did you have any connections or anyone?
Didn't know anybody. Did not know anybody. No.
How were you able to find these roles at that point in your life? Were you going through?
Well, I did 7 Broadway shows back to back when I first came to New York. I mean, I didn't get them all right away. I mean, I did Arms and the Man. I did Johnny Carson. Lots of good things were happening. And then when my first, I did the dumbest thing an actor could ever do. Dumbbell that I was. I got cast on the national tour of The Odd Couple, Neil Simon's The Odd Couple. And I was cast. I signed the contract. And then I auditioned for Eva Le Gallienne's company, the National Theater, and they wanted me to play Noel Coward, and I was a Noel Coward. I was obsessed with Noel Coward. I wanted to be Noel Coward. I loved Noel Coward, and so they offered me a role of playing Noel Coward on a tour and then opening on Broadway, and then they offered me a part in Moliere's The Imaginary Invalid. And I thought, well, and they said, why don't you just ask them to get out of your contract? So I did. What a dumb person I was. So I asked Neil Simon's producer if I could get out of my contract. I did work for Mr. Simon again. I stood by and played all the roles in California Suite.
But
And
a wonderful place to be where you've got these options. I mean, any actress would say, oh my God, this is incredible. So, did you find that you were, for lack of a better word, manifesting your career? Or do you feel that your career was unfolding and happening based on the connections that you were making along the way?
well, I was always like a pig in poop, you know. I mean, I would always fall into the right place at the right time, often. So, you know, I would get a secretary interested in me to introduce me to the agent in the agency, you know. And then I became the voice of everything. I did voiceovers. I was the voice of Secret deodorant. They'd go, Secret designed for a man. And I go, but made for a woman. You know, and I would do all these dirty things like, you know, put this fragrance on, or it would, you know, I mean, I did all these sexy voiceover things for a long time. And then when I met my second husband, Luther Davis, who wrote lots of Broadway shows and musicals, he said, do you just want to be a voiceover person? Or why don't you get back on stage? You know, so eventually I went out to California because at that point, the point that I wanted to go back on stage, there were no low voice singers. They were all high sopranos on Broadway, everybody. So I went out to Los Angeles and I did a lot of films and a lot of sitcoms and lots of series. And yeah, I was out there for a long time. And then I came back. And then I came in and out of all my children. They would call me and say, we want to bring you back. We're going to bring your daughter back. And you know, you're going to give you a great plot. And, you know, so I would fly back and say, okay. And I would do all my children. So it was like slipping in, you know, in my nightclub act, I'm saying, the day I slipped into Marian Colby's sex-crazed body and entered the Glamorama beauty parlor and saw that hunk of a 19-year-old boy standing across from me, Marian thought, sooner or later, you're gonna be mine. You know,
when I think about your career and how it's unfolding here, just think if your voice had not changed, the
that's
career
right.
trajectory that you
I
would have,
wouldn't have been in the drama club and I wouldn't have been in the play. And then I wouldn't have, yeah, exactly.
just what an amazing story. As you were having this career, and then your second husband tells you you've got a choice. Do you want to stick with doing the off camera voiceovers
Yep.
or being on stage again? Were you thinking? I know that you had said that you were already in LA doing TV and all of that. Was there one particular area that you felt that you were gravitating towards? And I want to talk about this before we get to
Movies. I love doing movies. I love doing movies. I love doing television. Yeah. Stage, I love, but it's so hard. So hard. You know, there's a blizzard, you know, and people say, we're not going to go. We're going to cancel our tickets. Well, I can't cancel. I've got to go out in the blizzard, you know, and get to the theater. And, you know, it's the most rewarding. I've just broken in now. I'm doing stand-up comedy now. I went to stand-up comedy school this year. I'm doing stand-up comedy. I'm loving it. I'm loving it. You know, you sit on, I'm doing, I mean, I start my stand-up. I start by saying, I just turned 86 years old last July and you get all these applause. And I said, no, I'm not saying this to get applause. I'm telling you this because at this point in my life, I'd rather do sit down comedy. And then I sit on a stool, you know, and I said a couple of years down the road, I'll probably be doing lie down comedy, you know, and then, you know, whatever. Anyway, so, and I talk about aging, you know, and then, so I'm doing comedy and I worked with Marilyn May and I were working together. This goes back to Charlotte Rae. Okay, Charlotte Ray calls me and she said, Jennifer. I said, yes, Charlotte. She said, I just saw this wonderful master class by a great singer. And you said you wanted to do a nightclub act. Get into her class. She's coming to New York. So I got into Marilyn's class. And right before COVID hit, we were almost ready to maybe do an act, a nightclub act. And then COVID hit, and that was it. So then came back, and I got into, I came eventually. I still was with Marilyn for a while. Marilyn to me is awesome.
She's beyond awesome. There's
I'm
no
just, I mean, the woman, she's brilliant. I mean, the only way to describe Marilyn May is she is brilliant. She's a brilliant performer, brilliant singer, and she thinks in music. It's her life is music. That's it. So anyway, eventually we had to part ways because of scheduling, and I'm now working with Ian Herman as a musical director.
Another favorite.
So and just the most deliciously funny, charming, talented. Wow, is he talented. So, we're putting together the show, and we're still cutting. I've got another song I'm going to put in tomorrow that I forgot, that I think is going to really, really make people cry. That makes me cry. So, where did you go? You disappeared, honey.
Oh, I'm right here. I'm showing everyone that you're going to be at 54 below. I just pulled that up on the screen. But I'm here.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know. Oh no, I've technically messed up again. I've done something.
No. I want to go back for a moment, and then we're going to talk about your upcoming show. This hour it's flying. We've already gone half an hour already. But I want to ask. I mean, first of all, in the theater, and you brought up a very interesting point. Weather changes, life events happen. It's gotten better. I mean, there was a time where you could have a death in the family and they wouldn't let you out. You still had to go on because the audience is counting on you. Yep. So you have that career, which is essentially a nighttime career. Ethel Merman says you become a nun when you get into a hit show. But then the flip side of that.
Now hold your train, and then let's go to the flip side in a minute. But let me tell you something. I was standing by for Tammy Grimes in Barbara Berry in California Suite, and it's Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I have 30 people for dinner in my 5-flat walk-up apartment, rent control apartment. And the phone rings, and it's stage manager. And he says, how do you look? I said, what do you mean, how do I look? I look like I looked last time you saw me. He said, no, are you made up? I said, yeah. He said, listen, you got to get to the theater. I said, why? He said, Tammy might collapse. She's not well. I said, oh my God. So we all left my apartment. My mother was here, and it's Christmas Eve, and we get to the theater, and I buy my mother a 3rd row ticket, right? So my mother thinks it's way too expensive. So she exchanges it and goes up to the balcony. Okay, so my mom's in the balcony. And they said, get into your tennis outfit. You're probably going to go on for the fourth play, because California Suite was 4 plays. Mm-hmm. So I'm in my tennis outfit, and I'm trying to think now, what are the lines? And I'm listening to the British play, that Maggie Smith, I think, won Academy Award for. Where she loses the Academy Award, and mm-hmm. Tammy's talking on stage, and I hear her. I'm in a dressing room. I hear her, and suddenly it's silence. Well, as soon as Miss Grimes standby can get into an evening gown, we will go on with when I'm in shorts and tennis shorts. So I have to run under the stage, down 2 flights, run up 2 flights, get into an evening gown, run down stage, and get on stage with George Grizzard. So I get on stage and we play the last half of the British thing, which is one of my favorites. I love it. And curtain came down, and you hear my mother in the balcony, "That's my daughter!" And the whole audience practically fell on their floor laughing. That's my mother. So segue. You said now you want to segue to the other side.
The flip side of that, or the opposite side of that, I should say, is daytime television. And I know so many people know you as Marian Colby, but you did a lot of daytime television prior to that, including filling in for one of my dearest, dearest, dearest friends,
Eileen Fulton.
Eileen Fulton, who just passed away.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
sorry about
yeah,
that.
and
It's
she
so
died.
beautiful.
She to the very end. And for those who are interested, you can see my interview with her on her 90th birthday. It's here on YouTube. But what is that experience like coming in? It's one thing to step in for Tammy Grimes on
Well,
stage.
because you know what you're doing when you see. I never saw Miss Eileen Fulton's show. I had nothing. I had no idea what the character was or what I was doing, and so it was very difficult. It was very difficult, because I really was, I didn't really know what I was doing.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if I had been a fan of her show and I'd known the character, that would have been different. But when you replace somebody for a few days because they're in the hospital and you don't know the character, it's very difficult to do.
I'm always reminded of that time where Christina Crawford was doing Secret Storm and she couldn't go on, and Joan Crawford in her 60s
Came
played
out.
a 24-year-old. Yes.
Right, right, right.
Um, was it an easy adjustment for you to go into the world of daytime television?
But don't forget, I started daytime in the 60s when I started my Broadway career. So they were both the same time. I
Mhm.
did Love of Life in the 60s. For 2 years, I played a psychiatrist. So I was doing Broadway and daytime at the same time in the 60s. So there was no change. It was just they were going simultaneously. I was doing Edge of Night while I was doing a Broadway show. I was getting up in the morning to do Edge of Night and then running over, to the theater in the evening.
So
Yeah.
I have to ask you, what was a typical, if there is such a thing, daytime ritual that you had to get you through having the stamina for both doing early daytime television and then going on and doing a Broadway show that evening?
Well, I complained a lot. And I said to my husband, I'm so tired. And he said, darling, that's the price of success. And he's right. He's right. But it was very, very, very hard because, when you come down at 10 o'clock from a Broadway show and then you go out and eat, you don't eat before, you get to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock, then you get up at 6:30 or 7 to be on the set at 7:30 or 8 or even earlier for your soap. It's horrible. The alarm goes off and you want to kill yourself. You say, I'd rather die than get out of bed right now.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, the world of daytime soap operas, I mean, when you think about that time where so many people were addicted to these
Oh, yeah.
stories
Oh,
and
yeah.
hanging on to every word. I remember my mom saying years ago that she overheard this conversation, and these two women were talking about the story, but they were telling the story in a way that my mom thought they were talking about real people in their
Right.
lives.
Right.
And they very much were real people in their lives. Even if you're playing a despicable character, there has to be some redeeming quality that you find.
Well, you have to, I was hired. I never auditioned for Marian. I met the producer, Jackie Babin, and she said, I like her. Let's cast her. I'm going to Bali for two weeks. I'll see you later, but you'll be on the air before I get home from Bali. And I went, oh, okay. And she said, you'll be on for 2-3 months. And everybody was doing comedy on All My Children then. I mean, we even had the producer's cat. The cat had a fan club. He would put his paw on a piece of paper, and send out his fan mail. I mean, and everybody's doing comedy. And here I'm this lethally horrible woman who's sleeping with her daughter's boyfriend and sleeping with everybody's husbands and blah, blah, blah. So I would go to the butcher store and this woman would come to me and go, you adulterous bitch, whack, and hit me in the face. And I said, look, I'm just an actor. I'm happily married to somebody else. I'm not, they threw tomatoes at me. These girls threw tomatoes at me in the street one day. And so I thought, I've got to do something to make Marian funny because I love comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So what can I do to make Marian funny, to make the audience not hate me as much as they hate me, So I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a sex pause. I'm going to call it the Marian Colby sex pause. And whenever I'm with a man, 50, 70 years or younger, whatever, Marian didn't discriminate with age, I would do a sex pause in whatever I was saying to him. So if my line was, would you like a bite of my hamburger? I would say, would you like a bite of my hamburger? And the writers started to get the fact that I wanted to make her funny. And so they started writing me funny. And I think that's why my character lasted on and off for 30 years, as I did on the show, because I was a funny villain. See, if you're a funny villain, people love you. But if you're just a villain, they hate you. I mean, they really. And I would get fan mail going like this. Do you know you're sleeping with a murderer? And I write back and say, yes, I do. I read the script.
That is amazing. I mean, but when I remember that whole time with All My Children, and there was a lot of humor on All My Children, more so than I felt was on any other soap.
That's right.
And of course, there was, Dorothy Lyman, who was brilliant in her role.
Oh, Dorothy, brilliant, 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 brilliant. Absolutely.
Did you find it hard to basically go on and pursue other aspects of the business when people were identifying you so heavily with Marian Colby?
No, I just did what came down the pike. If a nice movie role came up or whatever, I would do it. I didn't find it hard at all. No.
So obviously you went beyond just 3 months.
Yes.
And the show went through various incarnations, and our dear friend Glenn was asking earlier, and I'm going to bring this up now. When you heard that All My Children was going to be canceled by ABC, what was that time like for you? And, hearing that this was happening, and to me, it was the end of an era. It was a major end of an era.
Well, we were the first soap to do an AIDS storyline, the first soap to do a gay storyline, the first soap to do a lesbian storyline, the first soap to do, we were the first. Agnes Nixon, who created our show and who was quite brilliant, we were very innovative. And so I've lost my train now with what you asked.
What that time frame was like for you when you first heard that they were canceling this show?
I thought it was very stupid of them to cancel the show because you can see that nothing has really succeeded in those time slots since they canceled us. Hello?
Yes.
Interesting. And I think we would still be here today.
Wasn't it a decision, correct me if I'm wrong, and I could be wrong, that they had made the decision to move the show from New York to LA? Am I mistaken on that?
No, they did. They moved it to LA. Yeah.
And that was the beginning of essentially the end of the show. And then it went to the internet, but you did not transfer with that.
Well, very few people did. They made it a little girls' school or something. I don't know what that was all about. It wasn't successful.
Well, I mean, we're going to run out of time, so I really want to talk about your upcoming show. I want to talk about your process. Is this your cabaret debut?
Oh, God, yes, Johnny. I'm losing my cabaret virginity on the 14th. And stand-up comedy, too. I just lost that, too. Yeah, I'm doing 2 things this year. It's on my bucket list. These are the last 2 things I've never done. I've done everything else.
Well,
and I've never done stand-up, so now I'm doing stand-up. And I figured now I know I can do it, so I'm going to go forward with it. And I've never done cabaret. So these are the 2 things I'm doing.
Now, how did you and Ian Herman come together? Because the collaborative process to me is everything.
Well, you mentioned the fabulous Walter Willison earlier. Walter said, I know this wonderful musical director, Ian Herman, and my dear friend, Debbie Damp, who I love and adore. She also recommended, and they both recommended Ian Herman. So I thought, this has got to mean something. 2 of my favorite people are recommending Ian Herman, and Ian is just, he's a rock star. I mean, he really is. He is a really talented man. in
What
every
was
way.
what has been your process in terms of putting this together? Did you come in? I mean, there are so many incredible surprises that are going to be in the show, and just for those who are watching around the country, if don't regret the fact that you're not here in New York, because it will be live streaming on Wednesday night. Am I correct?
That's right. Wednesday.
Yeah, so you can go to 54 Below's website and you can click on and you can watch it from the comfort of
Or
your own.
call them up and they'll tell you how to do it, walk you through it.
They're absolutely wonderful with that. So, did you come in with a frame of what you wanted the show to look and feel like, or did a lot of this come from Ian?
I came in with a few things. I came in, I recently got married again. There's hope for everybody out there, guys. I mean, if someone at my age can get married again. So I do a little thing about how I met my husband and how I felt about meeting him and how it just opened up doors for me that I thought had been closed forever when my second husband passed away. So I do a little segment about that. And then I do a tribute to my second husband and Robert Wright and George Forrest, who wrote Kismet. And I do a little tribute of songs from Kismet that kind of describe our 30-year marriage together. And then I do a whole thing of Marian Colby. And I do, after when she gets in the Glamorama, I do a Stephen Sondheim song, and then I do a few other songs. And then I do a very funny comedy song. I say, now, this is where Marian is today. And then I do a very funny song. I don't want to say the title because it gives away the whole song. So otherwise I would. And then I just do songs that have touched my heart, that I love, that I think will touch people's hearts.
And I have to say, with both of these shows, that you are either at this point sold out or very close to being sold out. Although I always say, show up anyway, they'll squeeze you in somehow. They will, they won't turn you away. So, what are
I
your,
love
what,
you, Richard. I just love you.
well, it's true.
You're a wonderful interviewer, by the way.
Well, when I have a great subject, and you are,
Well,
uh,
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
you love to read.
I love reading. Love reading.
Would you consider writing your memoirs?
Oh God, that would be so funny. People would be on the floor just screaming. I mean, my life has been a comedy, really.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the only person who's won an Emmy and they wouldn't give me the Emmy, and I won the Emmy. I am an Emmy winner. So, I mean, my whole career has been insane. Working with Mickey Rooney. Now that's a story that can turn your hair. Your hair is already white, but if you had dark hair, you would turn your hair white overnight.
Believe it or not, I know. I know.
So now
Trust me,
I
I
worked
know.
with I went on for Julie Harris, and Rex Harrison was like wouldn't talk to me. And when this business is so hard, and it ended up that it worked out quite well. But I've worked with, like, for instance, the highlight of I think of my career was working with George Abbott. George Abbott was I followed him around like a puppy. I picked up scraps that he threw on the floor. Why did he say that? Oh, that's how you get that laugh. Oh, I see that. George Abbott was on a panel with Elia Kazan and lots of famous directors, Josh Logan. And they said, Mr. Abbott, we understand that you believe there's only one way to say a comedy line. He said, no, I never said that. There's only one right way of saying a comedy line, and he was right. And he would come. And when I met him, I met him at 83. He died at 107, rewriting Damn Yankees. Okay. We have lots of letters exchanged. We used to go out for dinner once a month. And the man, I learned more about comedy from him. What a joy. What a joy to have experienced a man who directed 123 plays on Broadway.
Amazing.
I mean,
I auditioned for him once. And just the fact that I auditioned and I could look into his eyes was, truly something I'll never get over. we're going to run out of time, but which is killing me. I want you to come back sometime.
Thank you. I would love it. Love it. Love it.
We will, we'll do a part two. Uh, but people will scream and yell at me if I don't go back to something you just said.
Okay.
You won an Emmy and they wouldn't give it to you? What
No,
happened?
no. Well, I'm like award challenged. The year that Susan Lucci won her award, I was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. I ordered a dress made of flesh-colored fabric and rhinestones. It came maroon and gold. I wouldn't be cremated in a maroon gold dress. I'll tell you that right now. So anyway, I didn't win the Emmy. I didn't have the right dress. I'm award challenged. I lead an award challenged life. Okay. So I'm up for an Emmy for Anacostia, a little series out of Washington. And I got the script and I said to my husband, my new husband, I said, this is an Emmy script. My God, this is a good script. Oh my God, I'm excited. So anyway, I get nominated for an Emmy and I go out to the Emmys and I lose the Emmy to Patrika Darbo, who became a good friend. But she was in the wrong category, so she was disqualified. So then they said, you won the Emmy, me. But they said, you submitted too many scenes. Now, I wasn't the only one who submitted too many scenes. Other actors from other soaps submitted too many scenes. But I'm the one that got punished for it. So I had to hire a lawyer, and Patrika tried to help me. So you know what I did? Now, this is funny. Okay, I thought, I'm going to order an Emmy. I just did. I ordered an Emmy this year. I ordered a life-size Emmy. You know what came? A miniature Emmy. A miniature. I mean, I thought, this is a joke. I mean, even the Emmy came small. So,
And everybody, this is the business that there's no business like.
Yeah, you got that right. You've got that right.
I was watching an interview the other day with Cheryl Lee Ralph, who I'm a huge fan of, and she just got her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And when she got her star, she began by saying, I want to thank all of the people who said no to me and all of the people who said, who were haters to me. She said that when she first started, that once Robert De Niro said to her, you're a great actress, and please take this in the way that he meant it, ladies and gentlemen, it's a shame that you're a Black woman because you're going to have a higher mountain to climb. I want to ask you, with all the yeses and the nos that you've experienced, what was the biggest yes that catapulted you forward? Perhaps Bobby Short telling you to be an actress. Or what was the biggest no that you pushed through to keep going?
Oh, there were a lot of no's. There were a lot of yeses and a lot of no's. I used to get shattered over it on my children because the producer would run down the hall and say, we had to cut your storyline, Jennifer, sorry. And she passed you by, and you'd go, and I was going to have Langley. Remember Langley?
Oh, yes.
He was on Dark Shadows. We were going to have an
Yes.
affair together. I couldn't wait. I loved him so much. And so they had to cut it. And, I don't know what happened, but you would find it out kind of abruptly. Let's put it that way. And so it's like someone slapped you in the face and you said, okay, so I don't have a storyline. So those were very disappointing. Let's see. It's hard to think, I've been doing this for almost 70 years, darling. So it's hard to think of the biggest no. Oh, I'll tell you the biggest no. I auditioned for a company and I waited 3 hours. And he was famous. Who was the director of a company?
George Firth. No, was it George?
No, he wrote, George Firth wrote it.
Firth wrote it. Someone's going to fill me in. My brain just went.
I know, mine did too. Anyway, so I waited 3 hours and they said, sing the fastest song you have. Sing the fastest song you can sing, the fastest song you can sing. So finally, after 3 hours, I went out and I sang my song, and I really sing a fast song, darling. So this assistant, his name is eluding me. He's directed lots of Broadway shows. Oh my God. He did little night music too. Oh, what was he? Oh God. Anyway, okay. So she ran down and she said to me, and I really think I burst into tears at this point. She said, "I'm so sorry. We've already cast the role. And the director just left. But if he had heard you, you would have got the part." And I was like, I said, "Well, hello." What do you have to do? And it was, I'm never going to get married, never going to get married, never going to win that part, anyway. So that
Wow.
to me was the biggest no. It just felt like such a slap in the face that he couldn't stick around for the rest of the auditions.
Well, I want to say, first of all, thank you for saying yes to me. Thank you, Walter Willison. I'm in love. I'm in love. I'm in love. I
I love
mean,
you.
I could talk to you for hours. Your stories are amazing. And I hope that I'm going to be able to read your story because there's so much to tell. I'm going to give my final remarks today, and then I'm going to leave the screen and I'm going to let you have the final word. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to get to everyone watching that we didn't get to today. But I end, and don't worry about how to end the show, because when you say goodbye, I will end it. But stick around because I'll say hello to you after the interview.
Okay. Okay.
But I always end all of my shows with the same message. Go out and do something nice today for somebody else without expecting anything in return. I always ask everyone to go out, and today, and I'm going to ask you to do the same thing, Jennifer. Go to your address book in your phone and call the first name that pops up. Don't respond with an email or text or a message. Call them. Uh, I had the good fortune a few years ago of interviewing Joanna Gleason, and she said there's actually a syndrome about Sunday nights, that Sunday night is the loneliest night of the week for a lot of people, despite the song saying Saturday night is the loneliest night.
Right.
Because a lot of people, their weeks are wrapping up. They're nervous about starting a new week. There are myriad of reasons why. So pick up the phone and call that first person that pops up. Just to say, I want you to know I'm thinking of you tonight. And you're going to make a difference in their lives. It's very important that we all do that because we're so used to texting and doing everything here. Make the phone call. I have a dear friend, Sean Moniker, and he always says, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. And with that, I'm going to leave. And Jennifer, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, what you send out, you get back. In other words, if you send love out to everything and everybody, you will get love back. If you send out anger, judgmental, bitchy, gossip, that's what you're going to get back, So I try to send love out to people, anybody I meet. And I also want to say, and I've said this on a previous interview also, when you're in your 80s, you don't really think about doing stand-up comedy or opening in a nightclub act. You just don't do that. Normal 80-year-olds don't do that. What I'm saying to you right now is, if you've got a bucket list, look at that bucket list and take out what you need to take out on that list and go for it. Doesn't matter if you fail. What matters is you're doing it. You're walking through your fear. You're coming out the other side. And what a joy that is. So I want to thank the great Richard Skipper for having me on tonight. And I'm sending love out to all of you. And have a great rest of your night. Bye for now from me.